So in the spirit of the panel discussions that came before this section today, the first question I'd like to, I guess, ask our panel is, well, at least to discuss your current initiatives, what you have at OCD, at UP Resilience, and of course at ASTI, related to disaster risk reduction management, and how does connectivity play a role in what you are doing? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Basically, for the Office of Civil Defense, we serve as the executive arm and secretariat of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. So the Office of Civil Defense serves as the lead of the Philippine National Disaster Response cluster in terms of logistics cluster, and we also act as co-lead of the emergency telecoms cluster together with the DICT. So communication plays a vital role in terms of early warning and alert messaging, same as well with our disaster response operations. It was very evident during our previous experience during Typhoon Haiyan, wherein Haiyan devastated Tacloban City. And we have really experienced a cut of information flowing from the disaster-afflicted area going to our operation center here in Quezon City. It was fortunate for us still, since we have partners by that time coming from the UN, from Telecom Sans Frontiers. We have this emergency communication system wherein we were able to go there on November 9, 2013. And we were able to support the Incident Command Post and the Emergency Operations Center that was established in latest sports complex. So what we have seen from there and what we have experienced really push us through to really focus more on the emergency telecoms cluster. After Haiyan, together with the Department of Information and Communications Technology, we have put up several initiatives for us to have the enabling mechanism to really respond on calamities and emergencies. So at the Office of Civil Defense, we have what we call the OCD Emergency Telecommunications Team. It is a team coming from my division, which really renders emergency communication support on disaster-affected areas. Of course, giving premium and giving, of course, respect to the Department of ICT, all of these deployments at the local level are being coursed through the ICT. We also adopt the incident command system wherein our personnel will be reporting to the incident commanders on ground. Same as well, our emergency telecoms team will be providing emergency communication support to our EOCs. Now, as I am trying to look into the possibility, and I would want to take this opportunity to the Open RAN community, we are really looking forward on how Open RAN can put premium and advantage, and how OCD can harness the capability of Open RAN in terms of disaster response operations. So that would be all for OCD.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, Sir Kelvin talked about Typhoon Haiyan. No? So after Typhoon Haiyan, there were really a lot of initiatives, projects that were pushed into or funneled into disaster risk initiatives of government because of what happened to Typhoon Haiyan. So Miss Patricia here, I guess now it's the UP Resilience Institute, but it was originally the Project NOAA. So that was one of the projects that came about after Haiyan. So would you like to talk about what you're doing now with UP Resilience Institute?
Magandang hapon po sa lahat. I'm Trixie from UP Resilience Institute and the UP NOAA Center. So tama po, ma'am. We started as one of the programs of the OST, which was called Project NOAA at that time. And at the end of it, we were adopted by UP. And UP NOAA Center is now currently one of the core components of the UP Resilience Institute. So the institute is composed of us, UP NOAA, and then there are also other components such as research and creative work, institution building, and education. So it is more of adhering to the belief of addressing the RRM as something that is interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary with a more holistic approach. Anyway, currently, as part of UP NOAA and UPRI, we are currently partnered with the local government of Quezon City in formulating their drainage master plan. So what they want to really do is to address the flooding problem within their city. So of course, we know that QC experiences a lot of floods, and this has really the potential to become disasters during big events like Haiyan. So aside from the big events like Haiyan, we also want to address like the short-lived thunderstorms that cause these floods, because floods are it doesn't have to be a big event for it to cause problems. So a lot of the times the floods that experienced by the city are due to just short-lived rainfall events that happen within an hour or two, and then it causes a lot of traffic, and it causes, you know, a lot of problems, and it causes a lot of opportunities as well. So currently, as part of the formulation of the Quezon City Drainage Master Plan, we are also setting up or creating a network, Internet of Things based decision support system for Quezon City. So since it's just part of the DMP or the Drainage Master Plan, we are really more focusing on devices that are for flood monitoring and for rainfall monitoring as well. So we have set up a bunch of gateways all over the city, and we have also installed around 12 flood level sensors to monitor street floods and 3 rain gauges to monitor the rainfall. So in the case of Quezon City is at the upper watershed. So as early warning, it won't really be as effective as, let's say, putting the sensors way up in Marikina or Montalban. But the thing is, having these sensors in these locations also serves for, you know, the day-to-day decisions that need to be made. Should we cancel classes, or as an individual, should I take this route going to work, or should I let my kid go to school given that it's already rainy? So that is also what we want to promote, I guess. So based on the preference of Quezon City, all the data that is being transmitted by the sensors that we have installed are publicly available. So they want the constituents to be able to see and make use of the data that we have already. So QC actually already is very lucky to have already their incident command center and their emergency operations center. So in that regard, they're very advanced. But what we want to do is also for the ordinary citizen, they may live in Quezon City or even not in Quezon City, but they would also be able to use the data that is obtained by these sensors, because the data is being transmitted in real time. So in that case, the connectivity there is really very useful, because you don't have to wait for hour-long lapses before you're able to make use of the data that the sensors are getting. So yeah, the data actually, if you want to see it, is uploaded on the NOAA website, and then there's a tab somewhere there, and then you can access the data that the sensors are getting. So,
I just want to ask for the devices. You said you have 12 devices that are already deployed. Are
yes.
these devices developed by UPRI, or is it commercially available?
We co-developed them with but there are currently commercially available devices, but we in UPRI we co-developed and adjusted based on what the preference of the city is and how we think best the devices should be used. So for example, we adjust the frequency of the signal to really take advantage of the battery life. So the way it's set up right now is that kapag there's no rain, it's not going to transmit anything, or it just transmits every hour. But then when the device gets wet, it transmits more frequently. So it sends signals every 3 minutes. And then so there are a lot some changes that we also make to the device. And we adapt and adjust the currently available device so that based on the preference of QC as well, and based on what we learned in the past. So
Okay, so thank you. Maybe for my other questions, I can ask them later. Sir Ning, how about at ASTI? What do we do in terms of, you can talk about the MASID and our weather sensors as well.
Right. Well, first off, DOST ASTI is a research and development arm of DOST, particularly in electronics and ICT. We started on this DRR journey sometime in 2009, I think, with the ICT for the environment program. So we started to develop sensors, and then it fully blossomed with the start of the project NOAA. So we started to develop and massively deploy sensors nationwide. So right now, I think we have around 2,000 of them scattered all over the country. It's also a challenge to maintain. I'm pretty sure it's not a secret. And of course, aside from the sensors that we have deployed, we were also involved with the space projects of UST, and one of the applications of these space projects is into disaster risk reduction and management. So we do flooding, landscape monitoring, and even volcanic activities using satellites.
So I'd like to go back to the weather sensors, because the way that it transfers data from the location, from the site where it is, to the repository at ASTI is through GSM technology. So I guess maybe I'm going ahead of this discussion, but I guess would there be what would be the next iteration for this sensors? Like, do you see using other technologies that can be used to transfer the data from the location to the site, from the site to the repository?
Right. Well, currently we're using satellite comms as a backup, but that's really expensive. So there's this next iteration of the ARQ, that's the data logger developed by ASTI, and essentially access the brain of the sensors that we deployed. We are now integrating other communication protocols, say LoRa, LTE, even, maybe in the future 5G, because we are also looking to integrate, say, edge computing, AI, those things. So we would like to process images and even videos, and maybe send them over to the network later on, so that we have visuals are really powerful in really hammering down the point. So those things we are looking to deploy in the future. Actually, we have a deployment currently for our meteorological buoy in Taal. I think it's a town called San Nicolas in Batangas. So we are using that as a prototype, a prototype site, if I can say that, to test out our latest iteration of the ARQ, which of course uses some of the updates that we have introduced for communications.
So thank you. I guess my next question would be in terms of how we're implementing our projects and how we want its direction to be. What are the challenges? I guess not just in terms of connectivity or infrastructure, but in general, what do you see are the challenges that can hinder how we implement and how we expand the scope of our projects, or what we do, Sir Calvin?
Yes, for OCD, well, probably within the management, we're not seeing any problem. Since I came in OCD come 2010, I've seen how the agency was able to transform from being reactive to proactive. Now, in terms of projects, of course, the number one challenge in the government is first funding. We also know that. We all know that. But we have interventions for that. If that would be an IT project, of course, we submit our ISSP, Information System Strategic Plan, and that's being vetted by the DICT and the Department of Budget and Management. What's also affecting our projects are probably on the limitations of technology. If I can share, right now, we are aiming to implement a nationwide digital mobile radio platform wherein that would be the emergency radio communications network of OCD, same as well that the responders and even the local government units can hook and join in our joint disaster response operations. Now, with the present scenario, of course, there are different protocols in terms of radio communications. And previously, that was a challenge, but now we have those integrators. So little by little, we are able to address those issues. Aside from that, probably there are also challenges in terms of the buy-in of our partners. Some of our partners are really easy to deal with. They are very open to ideas, especially in disaster risk reduction management. Some are not. Probably the last that I can say is, of course, the persons behind those project implementations. As long as you have those persons who are really committed in delivering those needed projects to help the populace that are at risk. So that won't be a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. In the case of us learning from the lessons that we had with the Quezon City Drainage Master Plan and the establishment of this the system here in Quezon City, one of the challenges that we encountered was that specifically for the sensors that we installed, being in a high density built up area like Quezon City, theoretically the device should be able to transmit over. It's using the LoRa technology, so theoretically it should be able to transmit over a really wide range, and the data being sent, the packets or the information is just it doesn't take too much data, it's just water level, so just a few digits, but signal wise it became a problem because of the buildings, right? So, and the obstructions. But we were limited during this time by us dealing with the LGU only. And so a lot of the tall buildings are not city owned. So we were only allowed to install the gateways with city owned buildings. And of course, QC has the high building in the city hall, and they have a regional evacuation center that's, I think, up to 6 floors as well. But the rest of our gateways are installed in elementary and high school. So that's the highest that they can get. And so the other buildings here are privately owned. So there would be more, I don't know, paperwork and permits necessary to secure those. So even in the installation of the sensors, we had to install them in street lights because those are city owned. So well, there are a lot of street lights, so that's not really a problem. But the gateway devices are really the ones that need to be situated well. So I think with any other network, the placement of your device is really important. So I think just I don't know if it's gonna be a big factor, but we encounter that here in the Quezon City Drainage Master.
So I guess that's a common maybe challenge for a lot of government projects, the right of way. They call it right of way, right? So we've at ASTI, we've also, I guess, experienced that with some project implementations. But Sir Ning, for you to answer that question, can you focus on our favorite topic when we implement projects and how we continue it in terms of sustainability. How can we sustain? What are the challenges in sustainability? Because these projects are really, we know it's good. We know that it can really help, our country. But in terms of sustainability, this really is a challenge in most of the, the projects that we implement at ASTI. So what do you think about it?
No, in terms of sustainability, of course, after a project ends, funding becomes an issue, obviously, because every project has a beginning and an end. And when it comes to the end, funding also ends. And that becomes a really big issue to continue the operations of our projects or sensors in this case. Now, usually what we do, at least in NASTI, is to use our GAA or our annual budget to continue funding the operations of the sensors. But then again, we also have to think that our budget is, well, it's not that big. Sometimes it shrinks to to a size that's really
Frustrating.
and untenable. So cuts are necessary. In which case we have to go to the LGUs for assistance. Some of them are rather receptive in uh, uh, how do you say, adopting the stations, since the stations also propose value to their communities in terms of warnings and all. So that's one of the strategies that we look at. We look for adapters of our sensors so that we can, continue their operation. As they say, budget is really important in making this thing continue to operate.
So I guess my question would be, with all the talks from this morning up until this point about Open RAN, how do you see Open RAN on how you can integrate it with what you're doing? In terms of IoT maybe, or 5G networks, how do you see that Open RAN's potential in what we're doing?
Well, basically, what our office advocates is number one, providing the emergency alerts and warnings to the populace at risk. That's really a big challenge now because on the far-flung areas, some of them cannot reach. So probably Open RAN can look into it. We're grateful that our indigenous people use indigenous means to warn their communities. But at the end of the day, it's still, the local government as well as the national government that should be responsible in doing these acts. Probably Open RAN can introduce and bridge the digital divide within the city, within the center, up to the far-flung areas. The next point is what I am seeing is the national backbone that Open RAN can offer, probably, for our emergency communication system. As I have mentioned, we are implementing the digital mobile radio. And in the absence of radio propagation, radio frequency propagation, we can also use IP. So it's a good thing that we can try to look into together with Open RAN, if Open RAN can support those systems that we aim to provide the national backbone for emergency communication system.
So I think with the versatility of that Open RAN provides, it's not only in the number of devices or the different kinds of devices that can be utilized. So for us, we only installed flood level sensors because that's what was needed, or that was what was related to the project that we were currently doing. But with the system already in place, you can integrate different kinds of sensors as well. So they may not even be available at this point, but in the future, right, you can include many other different types of sensors to your existing network. And I think there would also be a shift to using the data from the sensors for day-to-day decisions, like I said before. And since the data if we make the data accessible to everybody else, they could get into the practice of using whatever information these sensors provide, for their own. Maglalaba ba ako ngayon? Or can I go jogging later this afternoon? Those kinds of things. So I think that's a good way for people to utilize the data in their day-to-day lives as well.
Yeah. In addition, since our sensors, some of them or a lot of them actually are located in remote areas. I think this was mentioned already in the previous session. So if Open RAN is actually able to reduce the cost of putting up infra, then that opens up the opportunity for the telcos to actually move into these places where there are currently no service available. But then again, if the area is only populated by sensors and there are no people, then it doesn't make any sense for the telco to actually go there. So that is where I think R&D comes in. So you can come up with some kind of last mile solution to actually connect your sensors, which are located in some far-flung area, to connect them to the, to a hub. No, and with this openness of Open RAN, I think you are essentially removing a barricade. Yeah, I'm like barrier. Yeah, that's a better term for R&D to flourish and be able to get data from a place where there is really no service.